Everyone. I'm here this afternoon with Steve MacIsaac. We're talking about data and AI governance and about AI fatigue. Steve, do you want to just take a quick second to do an intro?
Sure. My name is Steve MacIsaac. I'm a data governance strategist at Hike2. I have a background in data governance. I never learned it from a book. I've actually learned it by doing over 10 years. Um, Originally based out of New York, now in Colorado.
Awesome. Well, Steve, we have heard so much about AI fatigue lately. From your perspective, what's really driving this burnout across organizations?
I don't think it's specific to AI, honestly. Really, it could be any data related project. And governance is usually an afterthought in big initiatives. And I think that's a major thing that I always look for when working with customers. Really, if you have a project that's relying on data, you should probably take a look at that, quality or, the normal governance pillars to say, hey, is this information ready for what we want to do?
Couldn't agree more. With that, you've worked with a lot of heavily regulated enterprises. What are some of the early signs that a company just not may not be ready to scale AI?
Yeah, usually you'd want to do a data maturity assessment and kind of see where is everyone. Normally you'll find the finance guys are using lots of data and they have their own little black box that nobody else looks at it. And then maybe there's some other people that are just immature and trying to use more operational reporting. So trying to break down those silos and bring everybody together in a single central program, that's kind of the backbone of a federated data governance program. So I think governance really should be the central point that brings everybody working on data together to then help promote success across the company.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's still a lot of confusion out here. And there's a lot of organizations that are just confusing having an AI model with having an innovation strategy. What do you think the difference is, and how do we get everybody on board and how they should think about it?
Yeah, again, sometimes I think AI models might be developed in a silo and maybe not consider the overall strategy of all of the corners of the business. That's something where governance can kind of bring everybody to the table to say, hey, are we all talking about the same thing? Do we all have a common strategy and approach and direction that we're going?
Sure. So those models are just part of that broader innovation strategy. And you yourself, you've led the design of some award-winning governance programs. How does that strong data governance help to unlock that innovation strategy rather than to block it?
Yeah, over my years, I've seen governance kind of go from more compliance oriented to, hey, how do we enable more with our data, right? So for me, governance should be something that doesn't slow the process down, but maybe enables you to do bigger and better things like artificial intelligence.
Yeah. So, in your mind, what does a modern data and AI readiness assessment look like, and why would it be critical before launching an AI initiative?
You know, a lot of people are still working with old systems of data that they then try to integrate into shiny new tools, but it's not always so easy. So if it's been the Wild West out there, sometimes data is not going to look how you expect, and then you feed that into an AI model, and you may get, the current buzzword AI hallucinations, right? So unless you really have a good grip on what we're feeding this model is correct, you're kind of running a science experiment and hoping for good outcomes.
I completely agree. And do you have a good example where governance directly contributed to a measurable business outcome?
Sure, working with a customer recently, they have huge amounts of logistical planning they're trying to deliver their product with. So that is only as good as the address information that they have. So they're often having to do a lot of manual, checking of data addresses in order to make sure the product gets to the right spot. But why not have a conversation with the people creating the addresses up front and talk to that process and say, hey, when you guys put this information in this field, it's causing huge downstream effects, right? So from the outside looking in, when I see a company, you know, not speaking to each other internally, and instead of trying to fix the problem, just kind of reactively correcting it downstream, that's slowing down results.
Completely agree. I think we've seen that time and time again. And you talk a lot about starting with business problems. How should companies think about identifying the right use cases?
Yeah, for sure. You know, monetarily, it's an easy way to identify. Say your company's having a lot of write-offs. Why, right? So that's also all the way downstream in operations, right? Accounting is seeing we're writing this money off, right? Who can they talk to that can then maybe bring some suggestions up front in the process to help solve this issue and save some money? Or we're keeping all of these old systems of data because we don't have a data retention policy. So instead of maybe taking a look at what we have and sunsetting some systems, we're just holding it all together. Governance could give you a good data retention policy that you can then go and see, hey, do we need all this information? Is it risky to be trying to safeguard all this huge volumes of data when maybe we don't really need it?
Yeah. And what would you say are some red flags that an AI or a data project might be misaligned with operational needs?
Well, possibly when you don't actually talk to operations and try to just build an AI model and hope it's fits the need. I see a lot of development where we are not even really talking to the business or the people creating the data, and then we're just trying to build something on top of it. Go talk to them and ask them, hey, why'd you put this in this field, or why'd you put that in that field? What does this field mean? That to me is data governance. It's literacy wrapped up in collaboration, and then ultimately trying to enable better results.
Sure. And so you've had a successful pilot, right? How do you get that to production?
Again, it's really about understanding, is it production ready? And that's another thing data governance can do, is kind of these development processes where it's not someone in a silo making decisions, but it's everybody getting together, looking at what's being delivered and saying, is this ready?
So cross-functional collaboration. What role does that play in sustainable AI and governance programs?
As anything, any data program relies on collaboration. Again, what am I delivering? Did I speak to someone to even give me the idea of what to deliver? Sometimes when things are developed in a silo, it's delivered, and then people in the business are like, hey, we don't need this.
Completely agree. Like, do you have like, if you had to just say, like, what's one actionable step that every company should take this quarter if they're serious about scaling AI responsibly?
So what I'm seeing is people are impatient, believe it or not. So they don't have time to wait for a big governance program to be put in place. So one initial step is really understanding that baseline quality of your information. So a data quality program. In the past, I've thought maybe governance was more important than data quality because you need to know what good looks like, right? If you don't know what good looks like, how can you then evaluate your quality of information? But it seems like people maybe want to get to the good stuff first, right? So baseline profiling of your information, understanding where your data is in quality and maturity, is a much better way to lay a foundation for a huge AI initiative.
And one of the things I've heard you say that really resonated is that governance is a multiplier, not a bottleneck. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So you always want to show value, especially in an internal support role like governance, right? So how do you do that? By enabling success, not hindering it or slowing it down. So how do you do that? You align to the highest priority strategic initiatives. Again, if you have a governance program, you don't want it being developed in a silo. You want to be shoulder to shoulder with the people on the front line delivering big, important initiatives.
Could not agree more. So, Steve, thank you so much. Look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.